Stop for a second and listen to your own mind. Do you hear a voice right now? Not my voice, yours. A sentence inside your head that sounds like you, even though your lips aren't moving. Now here's the twist. Some people don't have that. No inner voice, no internal narrator, no talking to myself soundtrack. And they're not unconscious, not broken, not less intelligent. Their thinking is just silent. If you've never imagined that, this episode will mess with you in the best way. Because you're about to learn something most people never realize. Your inner experience is not universal. We assume everyone's mind works like ours because we can't step inside someone else's head. But this is one of the clearest examples that consciousness comes in different formats. And tonight, we'll explore what thinking feels like without an inner voice, in plain language, with images you can actually picture. No heavy terms, no scary labels, just a calm, honest look at the architecture of thought. Let's start with a scene. You're reading a message. You're about to reply. If you have an inner voice, you might hear your reply before you type it. You might rehearse it, edit it, softly argue with yourself, rewrite the tone. But if you don't have an inner voice, you might not hear anything. You just know what you want to say, and then the words appear when you type or speak. For some people, thinking is like a quiet movie. Pictures, shapes, a feeling of direction. For some, it's like a map. They can sense where the idea is without hearing the road. And for some, it's like pure intention. No sound, no image, just, I know. Now, if you're listening and thinking, wait, how is that possible? Here's the simple answer. Your brain can represent ideas without words. Language is one way to think, not the only way. Your mind can hold meaning without wrapping it in a sentence. And this is why the topic goes viral fast, because everyone immediately asks, so what do I have? Do I have a voice? Do I have pictures? Do I have both? Do I have neither? And here's the real surprise. Many people have a mix, and it can change depending on stress, sleep, mood, and focus. So it's not just voice or no voice, it's more like different modes. Now let me make you feel the difference with a tiny experiment, safe, simple, and weirdly revealing. Think of an apple. If you have strong mental imagery, you might see it. Red, shiny, maybe with a bite. Now think of the word apple. If you have a strong inner voice, you might hear the word. But if your inner voice is quiet, you might not hear anything. You might just sense the concept. And the concept can still be clear. You can still answer questions. You can still plan. You can still reason. Because thinking is not identical to hearing. Now here's the reading shock, and I want you to actually sit with it. Some people can read silently, with absolutely no inner sound. No voice reading the words, no whisper in the head. The words go in, and the meaning appears directly. If you're a voice thinker, that can feel impossible. But for silent thinkers, that's just normal life. Now, why do we assume thinking must sound like speech? Because for people who do have inner speech, it feels like the control center. It feels like I am the voice. But the voice is only one interface. It's like one screen on a machine, not the whole machine. The brain can run without that screen being loud. Now you might ask, is having an inner voice better? No. It has strengths and it has costs. Inner voice can help you rehearse, help you plan, help you self-coach. But it can also become noise. It can spiral. It can overthink. It can replay regret. It can amplify anxiety. Some people's minds are loud, and they can't turn it down. So for them, the idea of silence sounds like a superpower. Meanwhile, some silent thinkers wish they could talk things through internally, because their thoughts can be fast but harder to organize into words. So neither is superior. They are different styles, different tools. Now I want to give you something truly premium, a way to picture what inner voice actually is. Inner voice is not a tiny person inside you. It's your brain simulating speech without moving your mouth. That's it. A private rehearsal system. And rehearsal matters because language can shape emotion. If you say, "I'm fine" inside your head, your body can calm a little. If you say something is wrong, your body can tense. So inner speech isn't just thinking, it's also regulation, which is why stress changes it. When people are tired, the voice can become harsher. When people are anxious, the voice can become repetitive. When people are low, the voice can become cruel. This is where the topic becomes very human, because a lot of suffering doesn't come from the world. It comes from the narrator. And if your narrator is quiet, you may be less trapped in loops. But you may also have different challenges, like explaining feelings to yourself, because you don't naturally label them with words. Now, before we go deeper, I want to lock this to the identity of this channel. Sleep, dreams, memory, time. Some people don't experience their dreams as voice either. Their dreams are more like images, motion, emotion, atmosphere. They wake up remembering a feeling, a scene, a color, but not an inner narrator talking through the dream. And once you realize that, you stop assuming there is one default human mind. You start seeing consciousness as a spectrum of styles. Now, let's go from wow to this explains my life. Now, I want to show you something that will make you recheck your own mind. Because inner voice isn't one thing. It has different forms. Some people have a voice that sounds like their real speaking voice, full sentences, clear tone. Some people have a voice that is more like pressure, like meaning shaped into words but without sound. Some people don't hear a voice. They see words, like subtitles, like silent captions. And some people have almost none of it until they force it by reading aloud in their head or by writing. So when someone says, "I have no inner voice," it can mean different experiences. Now here's another shock, and it's very gentle science. Some people don't see pictures in their mind either. If you say, "Imagine a beach," they understand the idea, but they don't see a beach. No color, no scene, no mental image. They still function perfectly. They still remember, they still plan, they still create. Their mind just doesn't display pictures. Now, I'm not saying this is you. I'm saying something bigger. The inside of the human mind varies more than we think. And that's why two people can live the same event and describe it like two different realities. One person says, "I can hear it in my head." Another person says, "I can see it." Another says, "I just know it." Same brain species, different interface. Now let's make this practical with another tiny self-test. Think of a simple phrase, something like, "I'll do it tomorrow." If you have a strong inner voice, you might hear that phrase and feel a specific tone, maybe guilt, maybe pressure, maybe relief. If you don't, you may not hear it, but you can still feel the attitude behind it. And that's the key. Even without inner speech, you still have emotion, and emotion is a kind of information. Now, here's something most people miss. Inner voice is often strongest when you are alone, and weakest when you are fully absorbed. If you've ever played a sport or done something physical and noticed your mind went quiet, that's not you becoming a different person, that's your brain switching modes. In deep focus, you don't need narration, you need execution. So the narrator fades. And this is why some people chase silence, because silence is not emptiness, it's presence. Now, before we move to the second half, I want to widen the mystery one more time, because there's a moment where almost everyone's mind changes, right before sleep. In that drifting phase, some people's inner voice gets louder, random, strange, almost like snippets. Other people's mind becomes image-heavy, like little scenes. And some people go quiet, but feel a strong emotional current without words. And that's a clue. That thought is not a single channel, it's a set of channels, and different brains favor different ones. Okay, now we go to the part that explains real life. Anxiety, self-control, relationships, and why some people feel trapped in words, while others feel trapped in feelings. Because once you accept that inner voice varies, a lot of human differences start making sense. Let's start with anxiety. If you have a strong inner voice, anxiety often arrives as language. What if? What if? What if? It becomes a script, a loop, a rehearsal of danger. But if your inner voice is quiet, anxiety may arrive differently. Not as words, but as body signals. A tight chest, a restless urge, a vague feeling of wrongness. You might not have a sentence, but you still have a signal. And this is a huge insight. The body can panic, even when the mind isn't narrating the panic. So some silent thinkers say, I don't know why I'm anxious. Because they truly don't have the verbal layer. Their brain is sending alarms without printing the story. Now, is that better? Sometimes, sometimes not. Because a story can be painful, but a story can also be organizing. If you can name a feeling, you can manage it. If you can't name it, it can feel like fog. So silent thinkers often develop other strategies. They move, they change environment, they act first, then later they explain. Now, self-control. Many people use inner voice like a coach. No, don't do that. Stay calm, focus, breathe. That voice can change behavior, but it can also become a bully. So what happens if you don't have that coach? You rely more on habits, environment, and physical cues. Instead of talking yourself into it, you design your life so you don't need a lecture. That's a different kind of intelligence. Now, creativity. People assume creativity comes from internal chatter. But many silent thinkers are extremely creative because they think in images, motion, associations that aren't limited by grammar. They can feel an idea before they can name it. Now, one of the most premium points in this topic, inner speech is not the same as consciousness. You can be fully conscious without a narrator. The narrator is optional. It is a tool, and the tool often becomes louder when the brain needs to manage a complex social world. Because language is social. When you speak inside your head, you're often rehearsing a social reality. How you'll sound, how you'll be judged, how you'll explain yourself, how you'll defend yourself. So inner voice can be strongest in people who are highly socially attuned or highly socially anxious. Now here's another insight that surprises people. Some people don't hear words. They see words, like subtitles, like typing, like captions, and they still call it inner voice. So when you ask people about their minds, you're not asking one question, you're asking 10 different experiences. Now, a short story, because stories hold attention. Imagine two people in the same room, both making a difficult decision. Person A has a loud inner voice. Okay, if I choose this, then that happens. I'll regret it. What will people think? I should do the safe thing. Their mind is like a committee. Person B has no inner voice. They sit quietly. They feel the options. They sense the weight of each path. They can't hear a debate, but they can still decide, sometimes faster, sometimes with less torment. Then, when asked, "How did you decide?" Person B might struggle to explain. Because the decision wasn't verbal, it was patterned. And this creates misunderstandings in relationships. One person thinks, if you can't explain it, you didn't think. But they did think. They just didn't narrate. Now the question everyone asks next, can I change my inner voice? You can't always choose your default, but you can influence the volume. And the strongest lever is attention. What you feed gets louder. If you constantly listen for the inner voice, it grows. If you treat it like background, it softens. Another lever is sleep. When you're sleep deprived, the narrator becomes harsher, more repetitive, more dramatic. Another lever is stress. Stress makes the mind search for certainty, and language is a certainty machine. So the voice becomes more active, more controlling, more looping. Now, a gentle practical moment, because I don't want this to be only interesting, I want it to be useful. If your mind is too loud, move thought into the body. Walk while thinking. Breathe while thinking. Change temperature. Look far away. Because inner speech gets louder when you're frozen. If your mind is too silent and you struggle to organize, externalize thought. Write, sketch, talk out loud, voice note. You can build an outer narrator, even if the inner one is quiet. Now, I'll end with a question, and I really want you to answer it, because this turns the comments into a real map of minds. When you think, what do you experience? A voice? Pictures? Text? Pure knowing? A mix? Describe it in one honest sentence, not impressive, just real. Because the most fascinating thing about this topic is not just the science, it's the fact that we've been living our whole lives assuming everyone's mind sounds like ours. And that assumption is wrong. Now, I want to add two more pieces that make this topic feel complete and genuinely useful. First, relationships. Because this is where inner voice differences cause real conflict. If you are a strong inner voice person, you may assume that thinking means talking it out internally. So when your partner can't explain something, you might think, they didn't think. They're avoiding. They don't care. But a silent thinker may have thought deeply, just not in sentences. So the decision exists, but the transcript doesn't. And that can create frustration on both sides. The voice thinker says, tell me what you're thinking. The silent thinker says, I don't have words yet. And both feel misunderstood. So here's a simple bridge that actually works. Instead of asking, what are you thinking? Ask, what direction are you leaning? Or, what feels heavier? Or, what feels wrong? Silent thinkers often answer feelings faster than explanations. Now the second piece, motivation. This is also huge. Many people use inner voice as self-motivation. Get up. Do it. Don't waste time. But silent thinkers may not have that push. So motivation comes more from environment, music, movement, routine, not from internal speech. This is why some people feel lazy when they're not. They just don't have an internal drill sergeant. So if that's you, the solution is not shame. The solution is building external cues, a checklist, a timer, a ritual, a small action that starts momentum. Because once movement starts, thinking often becomes easier. Now I want to add one more wow fact, and then we'll close. Sometimes inner voice isn't missing, it's just faint. People discover this when they write. They sit with a blank page, and suddenly their mind becomes verbal. Because writing pulls language out of the system, like a magnet. So if you feel silent inside, but you can write clearly, you're not lacking thought. You're using a different doorway into thought. And that's the final, gentle science point. Your brain has multiple ways to be intelligent. Some minds speak. Some minds see. Some minds sense. Some minds build meaning without words. And once you realize that, two things happen. First, you stop judging yourself for having the wrong mind. Second, You stop assuming everyone else lives inside the same inner world. And that creates something rare. Not just knowledge, empathy. So I'll ask you one more time, because I genuinely want to read the answers. When you think, what do you experience? A voice? Pictures? Text? Pure knowing? A mix? And if you can, tell me one moment you noticed it most. Late at night? Under stress? While reading? While making a decision? Right before sleep? One honest sentence. Because that one sentence will teach other people that their mind is not the only mind.